we all worship something is not usually the kind of material we talk about when we have financial conversations.
It is, but you recently had a conversation with someone where they talked about the things we own and do we worship them? And that was sort of challenging for you.
In real life.
In real life, an actual conversation. Wasn't content for the pod until you thought about it later, but tell me about that.
Well, it actually was because the person I was talking to said, hey, this could be a good episode. And this is a family member.
So no shout out to you then.
Having this chat. It was at a Christmas function with a family member. Hadn't seen him for a while. And he was saying that he was catching up with a mate. And the mate was really getting stuck into, I'm not sure why, but getting stuck into organized religion.
Yep.
And basically just saying it's the worst, like it hasn't done anything good for anybody ever, et cetera, et cetera. And as this guy's really ripping into organized religion, my family member was thinking about the things that we worship for some reason.
Yep.
And so he started pushing back on his mate.
Yeah.
Not on this organized religion, like directly, but he was saying to his mate,
like, what do you mean by this? Like, what do you?
Well, he actually kind of directed it onto, see the shoes that you're wearing. Why do you...
shoes, your soft point. You did love you had that sneaker collection. I think we've chronicled that
before. My ears started to prick up at sneakers.
You had me at sneakers.
I also like sneakers a lot.
Yep.
And so my family member was saying, look at the sneakers that you wear. You wear this particular brand. They're an expensive brand. You wear them all the time. I don't know if the word worship came up, but the fact that my family member... even that word sprang into his mind, was really, it stood out to me. And then applying it to something that someone's wearing. And he went further into not just that you're wearing it, but what you would have to have done to wear that. And he gave an example of like, depending on the brand of shoes, let's say, that could cost you, let's say 25% of your weekly wage, maybe more. Like really expensive shoes can cost that. And so my family member was making the point that you are effectively dedicating yourself to those sneakers and working for them. Therefore, you worship them.
You worship, wow, okay.
What do you make of that?
Look, that's quite deep. I mean...
yeah, it is.
Does that work for everything we buy?
This was over lunch at Christmas. I was just like trying to enjoy the view and the sausages.
Yes, like relax. Come on, take it easy. I guess the question is, does that cover everything we buy? I mean, are you worshipping toilet paper because you buy it? Or your electricity bill because you pay it?
No. Isn't the answer no?
I would hope it's no, but I'm saying like we spend money on a lot of things.
Oh, yes,
I mean, shoes do get you around. They stop your feet getting hurt. Is it a bit mean to say that we worship them? I mean, what about essential purchases that you don't really feel like you have much choice over? Is that a worship to buy?
I'm with you. I don't think so. So I think then going back to...
is it only discretionary items?
What this was indicating, maybe even not even that. It's more what's behind the purchase that you're making and even your level of obsession with it, let's say. But I really like this word worship because it does sound sort of old-fashioned, fuddy-duddy, usually just associated with things of a particular religious persuasion or faith. And yet... I think that's an appropriate word to use, including for things that we buy. Because if you now stop and think about the things that you buy, whatever that might be, but to what degree do you shape your life and even your beliefs and values around that? And there have been plenty of times, and this goes back to the sneakers, in my 20s particularly, I spent a lot of money on sneakers. A lot of money and a lot of thinking on sneakers and a lot of investment in wearing those sneakers and thinking about wearing those sneakers and what the
strategy
impact that would have on my life. And a lot of my discretionary income went into it. Now, I don't think I was worshipping them, but was I? Maybe?
Or did you not know till later? You know, like with hindsight, we talk about hindsight sometimes here on the pod, is when you got past that stage of life, were you able to say, you know what, I probably was a bit too invested in footwear at that stage of my life?
So I think that's what it's getting back to, and what this family member was driving at is like how invested, how dedicated, how devoted to this whatever it is you are. And sneakers is one example, but then he went to other like high-end brands and he was showing me like a handbag that you could buy for 40 grand.
Yeah, wow.
And making the point that how is that handbag for 40 grand better than...
You could almost buy a car for 40 grand.
But you can buy a handbag for $40, I think. I've never bought a handbag. I don't know. But
you're more of a satchel sort of guy, just like a little bum bag.
But what's the difference between 40 grand handbag and $40? And a lot of it is the status, and it could be the look and feel, and maybe that is a $40,000 handbag, maybe. But it's probably more swept up in what you think it projects about you. But also what it then reveals about what you are into and invested in and driven by, isn't it? Doesn't it?
Well, it is. I don't know that most people would never want to say themselves that they're worshipping things, but probably...
No, you don't want to say that out loud.
You don't want to say it, but I mean, ultimately, the $40,000 handbag is obviously the ultimate flex, really, isn't it? I mean, it's like my point about the car. You don't even need to spend 40,000 on a car. You can buy a perfectly good car for $5,000 or $10,000. But the fact that people want to spend 40 grand on a handbag or a car says, I've got more money. I want to spend it on something that I think is important to me. I think when it's things that are visible to other people, it gets a little bit murky there because it's part of how you want to project to the world and how you want to be seen. So when it is about your clothes, it might even be about your house and where you live. Part of it is a bit of a value judgment is this is obviously important to me because this is where I've spent a chunk of my money.
I'm glad you raised housing because, as we all know in Australia, let alone other parts of the world, housing occasionally does get referenced as an idol, as something that we worship. And again, a lot of people don't want to say that's the case and will make all sorts of
justifications,
excuses or reasons for why we are
and they're often quite valid. I do think that the fact that we continue to pay the prices we do for housing in Australia, it says it's important to us. The question is, how much do you need to give up? And probably the opportunity cost of what you spend on housing, could you put that into other things?
I'm with you that we don't like to say that we're worshipping something. We don't.
I'm not the person that decided, that's what I hear a lot. And what I would sometimes think myself is, I'm not the person that decided housing should be expensive. I'm not the person that decided I want to live here. Or, I just happened to fall on my feet and that's where I landed. It's very easy to say that to ourselves. The question is it true? If you said, okay, go live somewhere else. Okay, get a mortgage that's half as big.
And also, what is it taking you to get there, and what is it taking to sustain this here?
Yep.
And speaking with this family member about worship, and I started thinking about the Bible is awash with mentions of worship and worshiping God. But I think a lot of people forget that in the 10 Commandments, they'll remember the first one, which is love God and just worship only God. But the second one is don't create idols. Don't invent something out of this creation, whether it's in heaven or on earth or under the earth. Don't worship anything else that is created. That's an idol. And you just look around in this conversation I had with this family member, like what he's describing is what the second commandment is talking about, I think. And again, it sounds like old fashioned and why are you talking about this book from thousands of years ago? But it's accurate about ourselves. And then you fast forward to the New Testament and the Sermon on the Mount, and the Sermon on the Mount's famous. But a part of that where Jesus talks about you can't serve two masters, you can't serve God and money. And we've talked about this on the podcast. Go back into the back episodes, you will find us talking about this previously. But also within that, let me just find that just before that, because a lot of us, we focus on the can't serve two masters thing, God and money. Fair enough. Okay, I think I understand that. But Jesus says a little bit earlier, for where your treasure is, there your hearts will be also. That is a clear indication, I think, of where you put your treasure, what you're investing in, what you are spending money on. Am I spending $1 gazillion on sneakers? Could be indicating where my heart
is. It your beliefs? I mean, it's definitely where your priorities are. I mean, we mightn't like to think that, but ultimately I do say, we've all heard the saying, you put your money where your mouth is. So I generally trust where people spend their time, but also too where they spend their money. So if someone's putting money into something, I tend to think, well, you know what? You had other choices. That's money you've worked for generally. Where you've spent your money and where you've invested your money is obviously what's important to you. So it is hard not to say to someone that's got a closet full of sneakers, obviously that's important to you, is having those sneakers.
What's really difficult also in all this, Pete, and as much as I'm putting the story out here to, and this happened, this family member talking about his mate, there's like a couple of stages removed, but thinking about this myself, I've been trying to diagnose, like, am I worshipping things based on what I'm spending on? And I haven't been able to work anything out yet, as in I haven't put a finger on, that.
It's a line item in your budget, like 3% for worship, like, 97% essentials, 3% just for worship.
I don't know if you've tried to do this, but it's a pretty handy diagnostic, I think, to try to sit back and think, is there something in what I'm spending my money on that indicates something about not just what I believe and what I value, but what I prioritize and worship and devoted to, and the things I'm willing to do, such as, are you trying to get a higher paying job so that you can pay for your $40,000 handbag? And that's not just because the $40,000 handbag is better, maybe it is, but it's more because you think that thing is worth so much to you that you will give of yourself. Maybe you're no longer at home as much. Maybe you're not seeing your family as much, your friends, you're not as connected. There's all these ripple effects of what I think we can use the word worship.
Yeah, look, I think it can be gradual. Like, it can be sort of death by a thousand cuts. Like, no one wakes up and says, oh, I'm going to worship this and spend lots of money on it and spend less time on my family. But I think it could happen gently, it could happen slowly, and it could often happen over time. The question is, would you be willing to cut it back cut it out. And if someone said to you, you can never buy sneakers again, you just got to live with what you got, how would that make you feel? If you said you're living in this house forever and you're never going to go move to the beach, would you be okay with that? If someone said you've got the job you've got, your income's going to stay the same forever, are you okay with that? And they're uncomfortable, thoughts to sit with, but you need to be able to sit with them and say, well, why do I want more? Because if you want less stuff, you can probably get away with wanting less income.
Wow, Pete, that sounds like a show me the money.
Sorry, yeah, I jumped ahead of the show me the money.
Usually show me the money.
I show you less money almost. Like,
it's
almost, yeah.
I see where you're going with that. Usually it does land with you, show me the money.
Yeah, but I think it's you, yeah.
I wanted to add a quick one. No, it wasn't even going to be me. It was going to be back to Jesus.
Yep.
Which is, for where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. And I think that is an amazing way to self-diagnose on whether we do or we do not worship what we're buying.
Yep.
Thanks, Jesus. Right. So that was Money, Faith and Finance. Another episode done.
Big one.
If you are not already, there's absolutely no excuse that you're not a member of the Facebook group. There's just none. Like, we talked about excuses and things before, but
it's
really,
free.
There aren't.
It's free. It doesn't cost anything. It's no line item in your budget. It's free to press the button, people.
Wow, that's the best reason you come up with. It's free.
We're free. We're value for money. We're worth double the price you're paying.
I was also going to say there are loads of great conversations and insights and experience and wisdom being shared, not just by ourselves, but loads of other people in the group who want to talk about the motivation behind our money and share that and encourage us to good deeds and not buying $40,000 handbags. I think, unless you can make a case for that, and I'd be very interested.
Do.
I would love to hear that.
Give us a business case.
In the Money, Faith and Finance Facebook group. Also, check out all the back catalogue because, in a word, Pete, spectacular.
Spectacular. And lots of seasons. Like, we've just got so many seasons.
It's a little bit...
Most shows are cancelled by season 7, so we're in overtime.
Yeah, I was going to... Wait, you're really pushing. I was going to say it's a little bit lame how much we're talking ourselves up. It's spectacular and 5 stars and didn't get cancelled, but it's all true. And on the next episode, Pete, I'm still going to be Ben, and if I'm not mistaken, you will be Pete Burrows.
I will remain as ever.
Lower Russell and Farr, Penrith.
Yes.
Because you're an accountant.
I am an accountant.
And you work with, it's individuals, isn't it? And small businesses.
Yes.
Fantastic. That's you. I'm me. We'll see you next time. Money, Faith and Finance.